everyone.
Didn't want
We
to
can
miss out for
start.
this.
I know.
There's a pretty deep agenda. This agenda is
Yeah,
like
I know. We can start now because John's here. So.
7 o'clock.
Pull up our, let me pull up my, thank you. I have to copy up so I can like go both places where I'm going and where. All right. Well, I want to welcome, let's see, make sure this is on. Okay, welcome to Alpine City Planning Commission, November 1st, 2022. We have with us from Planning Commission, Troy Slade, Ethan Allen, John McKay, Alan McDonald, Suze Wittenberg, and Jeff Davis. Myself, Jane Greiner. From the city, we have Jed Muhlstein and Heidi Jackman, and Marla Fox. The first thing we'll do is we'll have an opening prayer by Troy Slade, and Jeff Davis will then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are thankful that we can meet here this evening and take care of some of the city business, and we pray that we can be able to do what is best for the citizens of this city, and that we can make the best decisions that we can. And these prayers and blessings we ask of thee, we do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and for justice for all. Sheesh, I don't know what I was saying there. Okay, first thing on our item is public comment, which we have no one here for unless anyone on the Planning Commission has public comment they want to bring in. Okay, we'll move on to no reports and presentations, and so we have our first action item, which is a public hearing for ordinance 2022-29, amending the development code. Jed, would you introduce this item, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
So it recently came to our attention, we had somebody come in and point out a section of code that we have never used. They wanted to have a house taller than 34 feet, and they showed us this section of ordinance that essentially says it's more or less an exception clause for your height of your home. In practice, city staff has never done this, and we don't want to. We want to, and part of the reason is if you look at the findings you would need to do to process this, it is super subjective. For example, it says upon the findings of no loss of light, air, and views of surrounding properties, or whereby reason of topography one side of the dwelling may exceed 34 feet. Those are super subjective reasonings. Again, like I say, we've never done this. We've had applicants in the past come and argue to try to build their homes higher than 34 feet. Our building department's been great in telling the applicants, just keep it at 34 feet, and they've all come back and made it 34 feet or less. So we want to eliminate this section of code. And that's pretty much it. I don't know if Marla wants to say anything. She deals with this more than I do. We'll see if she'll chime in.
Marla, do you have any comments you want to add?
I completely agree with Jed. This has been buried for years and years and years. We didn't even know it was there. It conflicts with current ordinances that we've been using forever. So I feel I'm on the same page with Jed that it just needs to be taken out and move forward with what we've been using.
Okay, great. So let's discuss amongst the Planning Commission members. Basically, we would be eliminating, do you want to go over the red line on this then, or?
Yeah, just scroll down.
Why don't we
and
just
show
scroll
them
down
the
and go
word.
through it? Yeah, and then we can. One more page.
Go till it shows the red text.
There we go.
Yep, right there. And maybe go a little higher. So this section, yep, this section of code essentially just teaches, or not teaches, it tells the applicants how we measure the heights of homes. And then go up, I'll keep pulling it up so you can see, okay, right there. So, yeah, again, this section of code essentially just shows or explains how we measure the height of homes, and at the very bottom of that section is this exception clause that we are wanting to eliminate, and that would be the red text.
Is it not in a section like just, I mean, there's the three, there, gable, hip, or gamble roof, and then this is just sitting here by itself, notwithstanding the, that's weird. Okay.
So I think, Jed, the only question that I really had reading through this is, do we have any situations where we just have some of these very steep side hill lots where you may have the street up here at one level and maybe you have a two-story, and again, to be honest, I'm a little unclear about how you actually determine finished grade and where you measure the 34 feet. But that's the only question I really had on this is, would we ever have a home that whose height was otherwise not objectionable, but it was just on such a steep hill that maybe it was a two-story on the street side, but it had such a drop-off that by the time they had, maybe 3 levels or even kind of a 4th level, like a little drive-in utility closet or something, like you can put your, would that ever be 34 feet on the back side of that, which wouldn't be very objectionable, but
Potentially.
maybe this would be that situation. That would be the situation that this was written for.
Potentially, but the way this section 3 is written, it actually accounts for that. Matter of fact, the person who brought this up had a house that had, I think it was 4 different levels of roofs. And the way this is measured, you do your average finished grade, so you've got your bottom elevation you're working with. And then it talks about the elevation measured at the midway point between the highest roof ridge line and the lowest elevation of the eaves or cornice of the main roof. In other words, you can have multiple levels in between there, which would be exactly the situation you're talking about, a house on a steep hillside where they have 2 levels up here and then they drop it down and have another roof here. You're taking the midpoint of that high and low point, whether there's 4 levels of roofs or just 1 roof, if that makes sense. But it actually works out. So the applicant who brought this to our attention, they had 4 levels and they were just misinterpreting this section 3, and they're like, we can't make this, we needed to go do an exception. And we're like, you're just measuring it wrong. Measure the midpoint of all of your roofs. And they actually came in under by a couple feet and didn't need the exception. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but but
No,
we
I was really just trying to think of a situation that where you might want to accommodate a request for an exception, and if you didn't have this, you couldn't. I was just trying to think of what situation might we encounter that's not particularly objectionable, but it wouldn't give you the flexibility.
Yeah, I think the way the average finished grade is measured, that average finished grade, say you did have a really low point on the bottom of the hillside, but the front of the lot's gonna be way up here. So your average finished grade's gonna be somewhere in here, which will allow for a really tall back section, but the front's gonna be,
I think what Jed's saying is that the finished grade is what fixes that problem. Instead
Yeah.
of the way you measure the roof line, the way they measure the grade is what fixes the problem.
Because you went 34 feet from that average finished grade.
Right.
You'd have a castle
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
in the air.
So three things. I guess, I assume that we do not have minutes from 96, why they put this in there, right?
I do not have that.
And this doesn't apply to homes that are on a CF 50, right?
Yeah, there's an exception or up in the ordinance, it says except in the CE 50 zone.
And why is that?
We don't even have a CE 50 zone.
Right, I'm like, what is a CE 50 zone?
I think the CE 50 zone is more there as just the option to apply a zone if we annexed like a lot of the forest ground or just some random situation.
Do you know what CE 50 stands for in standard zoning?
Yeah, it's a 50-acre zone.
Yeah.
That's what I
It
wanted
would
to
be
make
like
sure
a
it was.
commercial- It'd be a commercial.
That's why I wondered, would it be
area.
commercial? Would it be, I mean, there's nothing like that left inside of
No.
Alpine.
I think the CE stands for critical environment.
Oh,
Okay,
we
so it
have
would be
the
more of a
CE5,
forest
CE50,
service.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yep.
And,
and then the other thing I was gonna ask, it looks like planning commission can still allow for accessory buildings to be,
yeah, I was gonna ask about that as
24.
well. Why would that, if you
Where
go
are
down
you
a little bit
reading that?
farther,
so in this subsequent section.
Next, number 2.
See, they may be permitted upon approval by the planning commission.
I mean, is that like a barn? Is that a, you know, what would be,
Those are measured different, though. They are measured to the roof line. Keep scrolling down on that, just. So that's actually more restrictive.
That's more restrictive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the-
that's basically ground to the top,
Yeah,
34 feet.
It still is average finish grade, but it's going straight to the ridge line of the
Okay.
structure. It's not
Okay.
doing the midpoint thing.
Okay.
So I think in that situation, that one's a good one to keep in there, cause say someone has a nice looking house, they want a nice looking big accessory detached garage or whatever right by it. In that situation, my personal opinion is it wouldn't hurt for them to have a building that's almost as tall as their main one.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, those are the three things I
so taller accessory buildings doesn't refer to taller than the house.
Correct.
had.
It
No,
just means
no.
tall accessory buildings, taller than average or something along those lines.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, other questions?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, does anyone have any more questions that they want to ask before we go into a motion?
You do have to have a public hearing.
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
That's why I
Appreciate
said
that.
I'm ready to do a motion after we have a public.
Yeah,
hearing.
yeah, all right, there we go. I still want to know, like, if we're cleaning this up, what do you think about this? Except in the CE 50 zone, like,
There's, I believe in there is the CE 50 zone part of our ordinance that
This goes throughout, right?
it discusses how to measure the heights of the homes in that section.
so you think it is appropriate to leave it there, that it's not just mess that needs to be cleaned up while we're here?
To be honest, I would need to research the CE
Okay.
50 zone a little more to
Okay.
make sure we're
Will you
not.
come back for another item, just to find out, like, when we come across something that's just randomly
Yeah.
sitting there and doesn't apply to our city, I think we should just look at it.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean we have to change it, but let's
yeah,
find out why and how many places maybe in the code it actually shows up, and,
Yeah. I mean, I
Things
guess
like that.
that is our, kind of our
yeah,
duty, right?
right,
Yeah.
yeah, so, to apply it and see if it needs to be changed anywhere or anything,
Okay.
so, okay. All right, we will open the public hearing for the, let's see, for the ordinance 2022-29, amending Development Code 3.31.080 as it pertains to building heights. If anyone has any public comment that they would like to make? Okay. Since no one who's here wants to comment on it,
I was gonna say, did you
Um,
by chance say something the rest of us? No?
can't you see back there? We will close the public hearing. Now we can entertain a motion or more questions.
I'll go ahead and put a motion out there. if that's
Okay.
I will move to recommend approval of ordinance 2022-29, as proposed.
I'll
A
second it.
motion by Alan McDonald and a second by Jeff Davis. Are there any questions or discussion on the motion? This is almost scary. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. And we will move to our next item on the agenda, which is communications. Does anyone have any communications? Does the city have any plans for a Christmas party this year? And if so, I was wondering if we could get the
I'm
date.
sure we do. I
Okay.
have not heard any details yet.
Okay,
Was on a specific, I want to say the second Tuesday.
that's what I was
I could be
thinking.
wrong, but it's
Okay.
something like that.
So,
Jane, plans are being made for that. They are talking about going to a restaurant again, because
Okay.
that seemed to be the easiest. And most likely it's the second Tuesday in December
Okay.
on the city
Thir-
council.
13th?
okay, so I just wanted everyone to know that so that they could put it on their calendar, because I know you're all a lot of social butterflies and your calendars are gonna fill up in the holidays. So put that down. It's always a really nice event and very nice of the city to do, so.
Heidi,
Um,
do you have any other information on that?
I do not, a specific place has not been confirmed.
But as long as the date is all I'm worried about, is that just people can, second Tuesday then is good to know.
I do have a communication.
Mm-hmm,
Perhaps next year towards spring or summer, before the cider slushy
Mhm.
stand at the south end of town opens again,
mm-hmm.
I think it might be worth discussing, just as a public safety measure, whether there should be additional signs or curb paintings or something to prevent people patronizing, or
Mhm.
that stand. And I only mention that because I remember when that came before us 2 or 3 years ago, you know, I particularly had just some public safety objections to it because there's so much parking on both sides of a
Mhm.
40-mile-per-hour road on a bend.
Mhm.
It turned out there is a lot of congestion, this year even more than last. I did notice that the owners of the business did try to provide some off-street parking,
Mhm.
but it doesn't appear like very many
They have a
people really
lot,
cared
people, yeah.
about the public
I mean-
parking, off-street parking, or maybe there wasn't room for it. I just know several
Mm-hmm.
times driving in out of town, I had people turn, and probably all of us had the same thing, people turn right in front of me, pull out right in front of me, and then cycling into town a couple of
Mhm.
times. People pulled right out in front of me or threw a door open. I had to swerve out, take a quick look, see if I had traffic coming up behind me.
Mhm.
It just continues to me to be a bit of a nuisance and a safety
Mhm.
issue.
Yeah.
And I think that if the owners of that stand are going to attract as much business as they have,
Mhm.
they I'd either need to look at a relocation or provide more adequate off-street parking for the amount of customers that they've
Okay.
got.
Thanks. I personally thought it was better this year than the previous year because they actually did have signs up. It's still bad. But for me, the times that I was
But
there
the
was,
signs say park in back.
right, they
And
did.
everybody's still
But they
parking
were
on the
still
street.
parking on the road, but it wasn't completely lined on the opposite side of the
That's
road.
what my concern was.
But I agree that it does need to be addressed. They provided the signs, but, maybe there's better ways of handling it. I don't know.
Because where everybody parks
mhm.
is pretty much the de facto bike lane.
Right. I think your point about the bike lane is a very good point. If someone is going that direction and they're biking, it's a problem.
It's also just, it's, kids are excited,
I
it's
know.
ice cream, it's the freezy, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's.
It
they're
is very
jumping,
dangerous,
they're
yeah.
jumping out of cars, it's just,
Yeah.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
40 miles per hour right there on a turn, and it's just not a place
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to park.
Is their permit an ongoing permit? I mean, because it's almost like a temporary use. It's almost like a snow shack, but it's on their own property.
They
So
have
does that ever come back up, or is
Have a
it?
conditional use permit, but besides that, the owner is aware.
Mhm.
They've actually come in and talked about doing a little 2-lot subdivision there, and they
Mm-hmm.
have talked about relocating that stand around the corner on their property
Mhm.
with
Where the
off-street,
more straight is. Mhm.
with off-street parking. So
Mhm.
I don't know how quick that's gonna happen, but the owner is aware and they're,
Mhm. And they do have a ton of parking back there.
Yeah.
There's no way the parking's full, because if you go back in there, they have parking where you pick. If you've ever gone to, like, pick your apples, there's tons of parking back there, but people don't pull back into it. So that's good. Do conditional uses come before us? Once a conditional use is granted, is it granted in perpetuity, or do they have to come in every year for their conditional use permit, or what?
that's a good question.
Okay.
I'd have to research
They're
that
supposed to come in every 3 years.
Ah,
And also if they change the use, and Jed, didn't you guys talk about in that meeting that, they're not really supposed to be selling other produce that's not
one.
being
Yeah, we
grown?
talked about a potential ordinance change.
yeah, well, they have changed what they're selling because they don't just sell produce anymore, and they also sell products that were made, like, I mean, it's just simple, but like, they're donuts and they're different things like that. They're actually making a little bit of a mini store out of it, and it's great and all, but
Well,
I
they're
do,
selling ice cream there and they don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
cows,
that's-
and
right, and
So,
so
like, we
it
made the
should
Snow
be.
Shack come in every 3 years and kind of
That's what I was
tell what they
thinking.
were gonna do.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm not
so-
trying to be a killjoy.
No,
It
we
looks-
we don't want anyone to die.
People love it.
Yeah.
It's just dangerous.
It is, yep, and I agree, I think it's a great business, but it's gotta be safer.
Does Clark still own it, and then he just?
No.
Hey.
They sold it to Cherry Hill.
I got a text, you're being asked to turn your microphones on.
Oh, I just think you guys aren't speaking into your microphones.
Yeah, they're on. They're just-
Our microphones are on,
Yeah,
but,
they can't hear you.
sorry, it might be something to do with is it YouTube or Zoom that they're,
No, I think we just need to sit closer to
yep,
our
I think you
mics.
have to speak like right into your microphone.
Anyway, that's all I
But they
had.
actually sold it, and Cherry Hill owns it now, so, yeah. So that's great point, and can you put that down as a note to find out if they need to come back in for their conditional use permit soon, and we can follow up?
Yep.
Thank you.
Probably the best thing is to make them go commercial, change that commercial, and they can have a viable business there that we
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
We also have their next door neighbor who's now decided to open a boutique or an antique shop there. And I don't know what they're selling or anything, but they have a sign. And so they're trying to capitalize on that, which is, thanks.
It's the
Anyway,
American way.
so, yeah. Did you have a question for communication?
It's similar to this with biking, up on the trail on one of the alpine trails that's, well, I should go and check them all out, but where we go every day, I think that was all cleared out. I don't know if I'm thinking the city did it after that big mudslide. And it's up, if you go up Lone Peak Drive and you cut across to, say, 300 North and you're going into Lambert Park that way, all that is so full of beautiful, like just the cattails and all the things that come almost marshy-like.
Mhm.
But if that doesn't get cleaned out and there is some moisture, knock on wood, and
Mhm.
hope so, that is gonna be a problem. Cause there are homes there, but just trying to get the flow. So is that a city thing or is that a trail?
You said
Either
Lone
way, it would be
Peak.
the city, but if it's on the public space, And-
It's Alpine City Trail, it's the little ditch that goes right, follows.
and is it actually part of, speak into your mic,
It
is it,
is.
what, is it part of a park?
Well, it's
Um,
just, it's the city trail that goes all along, it will eventually get into the park, but it's still
Okay, it's on the trail system then.
considered our system.
And how
Okay.
far down, you're talking south of 300?
Yep, go south to Lone Peak. And that's where you can pick up the trail right at Lone Peak.
Yeah,
And you can, right in there, that stretch is the worst.
south of Lone
maybe-
Peak or north?
That's a
north?
great,
You head north.
great
Oh.
comment to send to our trail
That's
committee.
exactly what I was gonna
Between-
say, is why don't you send an email, and you can copy us on it, but that probably needs to go to the trail committee. Are you saying that you think it's gonna be a debris flow area if there's moisture and runoff?
Yep, It's
It,
just,
it gets muddy, I
and
mean.
it's just really, the growth is what the problem is. It's gonna be muddy because of the water, but it's just so dense with the overgrowth. of-
Yeah,
I mean, they're
that-
really cool plants.
that
They're
has been
natural,
cleaned out a
but they're
couple
gonna-
times.
Okay,
It's
okay.
more willowish kind of
Yeah.
plants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Marshy.
yep.
Okay, awesome.
So should I start with,
I would mention it to the trail committee first, yeah.
He's
and
still
then
president, or is it?
I think Will is, but Breezy's on there.
Breezy, well, there's about 7 people.
Yeah.
And it would, honestly, it's better if you can copy the whole committee on it. I would suggest, on our website, is the trail committee listed?
I think the new one it is.
Look at it and see, because I think it's better if the communication goes to the whole committee so that everybody stays aware. I've heard that they want to try to stay all more in the loop, so that'd be great.
I'll take some pictures and include that.
That'd be great.
And then maybe meet him there and just, so we have that location right.
Yeah, awesome. Well, anybody else? Okay, we're just full of communication today. Okay, we're not worn out. And the next item on the agenda, which is to take a look at the Planning Commission minutes from October 4th. So I need to be better about reading through our minutes. I think probably we all need to be better about reading through the minutes.
So one of
Jane,
the-
I noticed that I put the wrong date on there, so I fixed that, and I noticed that I had Jeff David, and I changed it to Davis.
Thank you. Okay, I was wondering about that. So on the date, it should be, you corrected it on the copy we have or just the copy you have?
The copy I have, I noticed it tonight when I was making my new template,
Okay, great. And so you've corrected the date to be,
October 4th.
okay, perfect.
Jane, I was also just make a quick, I guess maybe it's
Yeah.
a comment or a communication, but
Sure.
I've really enjoyed receiving, and it's very helpful to get
Yes.
the results of the city council meetings and the motions emailed to us, because for years, I mean, it's on us, it was on me that I either didn't attend or watched YouTube, or there are many ways to find out what city council did. I was just too lazy to actually follow up on it, so just kind of went off to that black hole, and whatever happened, happened, and I never really followed up and knew about it. So it's nice to just that somebody proactively sends us those, you know, the results and those minutes, or at least the results of the motions. I've just found that to be really helpful, because we
Yeah.
kind of see, oh, we reviewed that. This was our recommendation, and this is what city council discussed. And anyway, it's just been helpful to me to help shape, you know, what we do here, and how, again, we can just be a tool or a help for the city council in sussing out these issues and then sending on a recommendation to them.
Yep, absolutely. And it also helps, because you don't know if something gets pulled from the agenda a lot of times. And so we'll be like, what? They haven't even done that yet? You know, and so thank you to,
Yeah.
that was a great improvement. If you can give Bonnie our thanks for that and ask her to continue, that's been really, really nice. If anybody else has any, that was coming from a suggestion. If anybody else has any suggestions like that help us do our job better, great example of how we can certainly continue to improve our processes, so. Okay, great. Okay, does anyone have any changes to the minutes other than what Marla noted? And if not, we can entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes from October 4th Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, we have a motion by John McKay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Sue Swittenberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. And now we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Make a motion to adjourn?
All right, we have a motion by Ethan Allen.
It says Troy.
Well,
What's that?
Troy-
They
I'll
had the
second
wrong
it, so it
side.
won't be
And a
Troy.
second by Troy Slade.
Yours says Alan McDonald.
Oh my gosh, they do. They're in the wrong places. Oh, well.
Man,
We
I
all
ne-
got a new face for the
I never looked
night.
so good.
All in favor?